And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Alix Steel. We're counting you down to the closing bell. And here to help take us beyond the bell, it's a global simulcast. We're joined now by Massar and Tim Stenovec as we welcome our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, television, radio, and our partnership with YouTube here on a somewhat tepid trading day, Massar, on this Tuesday afternoon.
All I'm thinking, is it Friday yet? Yeah, exactly. We have definitely seen.
What's happening?
I don't know. It's just that kind of a day.
Carol said it was Monday on air earlier.
And thank God
right at the top
not.
of our show. Happy Monday.
Yeah, move up in yields, waiting for some more economic data. It's going to be interesting. Some more Fed speak before they stop talking ahead of the upcoming Fed meeting.
Countdown to the blackout period.
That's me.
Continues to be on.
Yep, week 2.
Just to point out, hold on a second. Katrina Dudley doesn't seem to mind the talk. We just had her on, and it's like, she likes the fact that they're being clear. She likes the fact that they're talking, and that's why the volatility is relatively subdued.
I love the talk. It gives us something to talk about when they talk. What do we talk about, Romaine, when there's a blackout period?
How many times can we say talk?
Well, I mean, what do we talk about when there's a blackout period? We talk about the Fed being in a blackout period, which I think is exactly what Carol will be doing here. But I was just going through it. Look, it's like you got Massar already out there, Bowman, Kashkari, we heard from earlier today. You got Cook speaking, I think, also. And that's just today. And I don't know what any of these people are saying other than what they said maybe yesterday, last week, or the week before.
I think that's the point. And that's it's not actually moving markets at the end of the day, but at least they're all clear. They haven't changed their point of view.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, maybe the fact they're not talking has been somewhat good for the market. An S&P 500 that spent a good portion of the day in the red, actually flipping into the green as we get the closing bells. These numbers take a while to settle, so take it with a grain of salt. But the S&P is only up by about 1 to 2 points on the day. That's in the green, but once again, takes a little while for it to settle. The NASDAQ will decidedly end in the green here on the day, with the NASDAQ composite up about 99 points, or about 0.6%, and the NASDAQ 100 up about 61 points, or 0.3%. The Dow, meanwhile, decidedly in the red, down 200 points, or 0.5%, while the Russell 2000 is going to close out the day lower by about 0.1%.
Yeah, most names in the S&P 500 actually lower in today's session, 367 to the downside. What it was good, Alex, is to be a semiconductor name, because the stocks was up about almost 1.9%. A lot of that had to do with NVIDIA, which I'll talk about in just a moment.
Yep, and just take a look at the IMAP function here on the Bloomberg terminal, and it really shows the breakdown. You obviously have information technology outperforming up 1.4%, but I was pointing out earlier, it's not just that, it's also energy outperforming as well, up by a full 1 percentage point, followed by communication services. Exxon, the best performer within the energy sector. And on the downside, the cyclical stuff. You got financials, healthcare, and industrials all down by over 1%, Carol.
All right, that's your big sector play, if you will, on this Tuesday. Let's get to the semiconductor space. NVIDIA finishing just off its highs of the session, still a gain of more than 7%. It's the number one gainer in the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100, up 6 days in a row. Last check, it was up more than 20% in those 6 days. So talk about a move to the upside to another record high today. The street just continuing to pour their love for NVIDIA. B of A's triple momentum screeners find stocks, including NVIDIA. Melius research analysts saying NVIDIA's margin stands out and is, quote, worth paying for, highlighting a metric that he says shows why the chip giant is truly unique, and that is the company's 69% margin on the basis of earnings before interest and taxes, performance that the analyst calls nothing short of extraordinary. Meantime, NVIDIA stock will surge 258% from current levels and hit a $10 trillion market valuation by 2030. That's according to IO fund tech analyst Beth Kindig. And perhaps the stock maybe even got a boost from Elon Musk's AI startup XAI, which raised $6 billion in a bid to challenge OpenAI. So there's just so much going on and so much love around NVIDIA. GameStop, talk about love. Up 40% at its highs, finishing the day with a 25% gain, rallying again. The company said it brought in nearly $1 billion from a share sale program amid renewed interest for the so-called meme stock. The video game retailer on Friday said it capitalized on a flurry of trading earlier this month by selling 45 million shares to raise just under that $1 billion mark. AMC was also higher today. So GameStop up 25%. I'm coming.
Well, no, the memes are up again.
I know.
Like 25%.
I kind of was like from the sublime to the silly, from NVIDIA to GameStop. Insmed.
I'm sorry, what just happened there?
I'm just saying, it's a little crazy. Insmed, ticker INSM, up almost 120% in today's session. This after the drug developer said a late-stage study of its experimental therapy for lung disease met its primary goal as well as several secondary endpoints. It's about a $6.8 billion market cap, and the company's stock now up about 50%, but again, up almost 120% in today's session. All yours, buddy.
Okay, thank you. You got the gainers, I got the decliners. I do want to start with Moderna, among the worst performers on a percentage basis in the S&P 500, falling more than 8%. Ahead of this, though, it was up a record 10 days in a row. It reached the highest level since February of 2023. Can't go up every single day. It paired some of the earlier losses. It was down as much as 11%, but at one point it was the biggest drop since February of 2022. It's up so far this year, more than 54%. And then shares of DraftKings falling more than 10% today, falling the most intraday going back to November of 2022 after a progressive tax on online sports betting passed in the Illinois Senate on Saturday. Analysts said the potential for other states to follow suit is the primary concern for investors. So if it's approved in the House, the new tax would take effect starting on July 1st, and operators are going to be liable for increasing tax rates based on their adjusted gross revenue. So they could end up paying between 20 and 40% based on revenue thresholds compared with the current 15% right now. So certainly will affect those companies' bottom lines. But the one I really want to talk about is Celsius Holdings. Shares dropping the most since May of 2022 after industry sales data signaled that the company's revenue growth is cooling. Shares falling by close to 13% today. It did tumble as much as 19% intraday a little earlier in the session. Morgan Stanley's Eric Sirota cited Nielsen IQ data that said that Celsius's year-over-year sales growth slowed during the week ended May 18th compared to earlier in the month. So sales slowing concerning investors. Up 50% so far this year. It was up 57% last year, 39% in 2022, 48% in 2021, and 940% in 2020. So in the last 5 years, it's up 5,800% just in 5 years.
Okay, well,
so
that's a move.
It's a move. A little bit of a pullback today, though, I would say.
All right, so we'll just discount that 13%. I'm taking a look at the bond market here, guys. So we had a 2-year and a 5-year auction today. Maybe unusual we get both in one day, but they weren't that great. The bid to cover wasn't that good. Yields kind of pushed higher across the curve, particularly in the back end. And tomorrow we get the 7-year, about $44 billion worth, so that will be quite interesting. I mean, we're taking down the supply, but yields got to go higher for that.
Yeah, interesting you bring that up, too, because you talk about how that folds over into the mortgage market. And I know, Carol and Tim, you guys have been keeping an eye on what was an interesting story here about mortgage rates actually climbing back up. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting is with these mortgage rates stuck around 7%, you've got a younger generation for the most part, and just individuals kind of rethinking whether or not buying a home makes sense anymore. And that whole idea of, right, you went to school, you got a job, you maybe got married or found a partner, and then you bought a home. It's the American dream for generations. And maybe it just doesn't, Tim, financially make sense anymore.
I think it, and I kind of had this realization while I was reading this story and looking at some of the examples of the folks that Paulina spoke to, Alex, but the fact that you can rent in Westchester for $3,500 a month, which is, a fraction of what this guy would be paying if he took a mortgage on, had homeowners insurance, had all the other homeownership costs associated. And now he's using the down payment to invest in, a 5% savings account. So he's like making a guaranteed 5%, at least for now, on that. It made me think, you know what? Wait a second, maybe owning a home isn't the best financial decision right now like it used to be. If you can invest that down payment and pay a lot less than you'd be paying on your mortgage, then it absolutely makes sense to rent right now.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. And it's a different way of accumulating wealth because that's how you think about home owning, right? You buy it, then you sell it, you upgrade, and then that's how you sort of build your wealth and then get bigger and bigger. But if you're right, if you can sit in a 5-year for 5%, maybe that actually is a bit better if you do have to rent. But, it is interesting with the new home sale market. You've had a lot of builders continuing, though, to offer concessions in the hopes that you will draw in those new buyers because we still need those buyers and there still is a lack of supply.
So I shouldn't invest in the home, but maybe in CDs. Alex, what about investing in movie theater companies? Is that a better proposition?
Not if the data over the weekend had anything to say about it. Did you guys see this? That you took a look at what
no one
Furiosa,
saw it, apparently
Furiosa, the next in the Mad Max saga, the latest installment, only took in $32 million. Garfield the movie almost hit that and beat that.
I would watch that.
I hadn't even
Weren't you
heard
really?
of either of these movies.
I was actually.
What? You haven't heard the Mad Max saga? Where are you?
I've heard the first Mad Max. I saw the first Mad Max.
That wasn't the first one. That was the latest one in a long saga over decades.
The
But
one a
your
few
point
years
is-
ago.
Maybe the saga
The
has
one in
to
the desert.
end.
The one in the desert where they drive fast.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
the one I
think
saw
that's all of them.
a few years ago.
It is all of them, actually. Yeah.
You know, Mel Gibson.
How
even
much did-
before your time?
Yeah, I'm sure it costs a lot of money to
Yeah.
I don't. Maybe we wanted to be outside. Maybe we're just tired, or maybe not every movie's good.
No, but that's the point.
But it wasn't even just this movie. I mean, there were a couple others that also came out that also underperformed. So I don't know if it was just the quality of the film.
It's supposed to be
I
good.
think, well, I guess somebody will tell us eventually.
There's a lot of good stuff on streaming, and I'm paying like millions of dollars for all my streaming channels. So maybe I'm just going to watch that.
Oh yeah.
Maybe that's a good point. Maybe that's actually part of it.
Can you do you mind sharing your password? I'm trying to save some money here.
Nope.
Trying to buy a home in Westchester. What's going on?
Exactly. All right, guys, that's a wrap. How many more days till Friday? 3 more
6.
days.
3.
Not that I'm counting.
Oh,
all right, that's a
harsh
wrap.
math.
Across platform, radio, TV, YouTube, Bloomberg Originals, folks. We will see you same time, same place tomorrow.